who was my best friend, really, was living in London, as were many of my other friends. So I was quite alone very often, although I was in the middle of this kind of whirling circus of doing.
Starting in a magazine, a publication that's completely electronic, what your thoughts were of where the industry was.
Well, I tell you what I was thinking. I was thinking the great, fabulous difference with the girls from the Skim is they own it, right? That's the exciting thing about the Skim. These two.
My question is, what advice do you give your children?
What
What's the best piece of advice you give your children?
Well, actually, persistence. I write about quite a lot in the book. He has Asperger's syndrome, so one of the challenges I had as a sort of working mother was having this child who was different and not understanding what it was all about, because at that time in the 80s we didn't really know what Asperger's was. And actually I only discovered that he was Asperger's when I published Oliver Sacks' piece in the New Yorker about Temple Grandisman. And when I read about Temple Grandisman, I thought she has so like many of the problems that Georgie has faced. But he's really overcome so much of that by his own desire to kind of overcome it. It's really remarkable to see that tenacity. And the same with my daughter when she's gone into journalism. But I have really tried to encourage them not to give up. And when they get knocked back, to not sort of just throw in the towel, because it's very, very hard to succeed without that quality, I think. So that's my message.
Question in the back?
Yeah.
Things that the periodicals that you've edited, are there any stories that you have published that you wished you hadn't, or any stories that you chose not to publish that you wished you had?
There was one story that I did agonize about publishing and then didn't, and I sometimes think I should have done, actually. And that was at the New Yorker, Lillian Ross, who was the wonderful old writer at the New Yorker who had been there from the beginning. When I got to the New Yorker, she and I became very good friends because she felt very excited about having a woman editor. She was then in her 70s. I loved her. She was like a little sort of elf. And what fascinated me about her the most, actually, was that she had actually been the love of William Shawn's life, the editor of the New Yorker. And he was married, and of course, Lillian was really his sort of other wife. And it was this secret, passionate sort of other marriage that he had, really, for 30 years. And it was a secret that everybody knew inside the magazine. And so she started to tell me her story, and I can't help myself as an editor. I always want people to tell their stories. So I began to encourage her to write about it. And I said, Lillian, you've got to write about your love affair with William Shawn. He's dead. His wife is dead. You can write about this now. And she began to write it, and she did write it. And I thought it was an amazing piece. And then I found myself in agony about publishing it. The reason was because the DNA of the New Yorker was so strong about protecting its own legends, as it were. And William Shawn's presence was still very much in the New Yorker amongst some of the people who'd been there with him, but also just somehow in the whole culture of the magazine. I began to feel it was a strange betrayal of William Shawn for me to publish something that he would have found so distinctly painful to read. He would have hated me to publish it. And I went back and forth, and I asked everybody on the magazine who I trusted. I asked Remnick and Rick Hertzberg and all of my I just kept saying, and they didn't want me to publish it. They thought I should not. It was interesting how that feeling was so strong. So finally, I was having lunch with Cy Newhouse, who I never, ever asked if I should publish something. I mean, the great joy of working for Newhouse was he never, ever told me not to publish or to publish. And I was in despair, and I just said to him, Cy, I just don't know what to do with this piece. Should I publish it or not? And he looked at me and he said, it's something I've never forgotten. I've actually thought about it a lot in making decisions recently, as a matter of fact. He said, decisions that are that hard to take sometimes shouldn't be taken. That's all he said. And I thought, you know what, I'm not going to publish it. So I didn't publish it. And Lillian then went on to develop it as a book called, I think it was called Here But Not Here. And it was a very remarkable and poignant book. I kind of think I should have published it now. I think, what was the matter with me that I didn't? Well, I was too still wrapped up in the myth of the New Yorker, I suppose.
to publish it as an excerpt when the book came out, would that have been
No,
felt
at that
better?
point I felt that would just have been chicken. You know, that was like, then it was a book extract. There was tremendous snobbery at the New Yorker about book extracts anyway. So it was like, you know, either we were going to do it or I shouldn't do it, and I didn't do it.
We
She
have
died
time.
recently, and I felt I let her down actually. But
One or two more questions from the audience? Any more? Right there.
Hi, I'm Chris. How are you? I
Hi.
just wanted to say thank you. I'm going to
Thank
forget
you.
a little bit. I remember buying my first Vanity Fair. I remember going to, I guess, a bookstore, and I remember seeing the most beautiful cover with Madonna. So like 86 or something. Anyways, I just wondered if there anybody, you're a strong woman, who kind of made you shy or giggle or blush around because you met everybody. So.
Anybody
And
who
I
made
have
me
read the
shy and
book, so I'm
blush?
sorry if you-
oh dear. No, I mean, I was always fascinated to meet, you know, super celebrities, as it were, because they were never anything. They usually were not.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I have to tell you, this is such an honor. And thank you to Harvard Bookstore for having me and
Thank
all
you.
of us. Book signing will be in the back. And again, thanks for coming out.
Thank you.